Welcome to another episode of the HITtalks podcast. This is a very special episode. Feature a conversation between me and Josh Cathcart, aka the baseball doctor, hitting coach and instructor at Hardball Academy in Pearland, Texas. Josh himself has over 17 years of coaching, instructing experience, an incredible story to learn from my perspective as a professional athlete getting into coaching. He didn't experience the journey going through professional baseball, but all this time has been fine-tuning his craft as a coach and hitting instructor, and I'm just blown away at the guy's knowledge when it comes to the swing, the drills that he develops. He has a YouTube channel, Instagram, and Facebook. In his YouTube channel, he brings out all of his tips and tricks to help develop elite swing mechanics. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Josh Cathcart, aka Baseball Doctor.
My story, man, I was born into baseball. My dad was an All-American at Sam Houston State, was drafted, had an injury. Mom was a college softball player. So I basically grew up with a bat in my hand and glove. I really didn't have a choice. I mean, honestly, it really wasn't a choice. Like other babies had rattles, I had a bat and a ball. And it just kind of went from there. I was always undersized and kind of, written off, and ended up just turning into for a high school and low level college, a really good middle infield type guy, but I didn't hit for power. I could run, wasn't really given a shot anywhere, big coming out of high school. So it was always a grind, and that's where, the coaching has kind of come into it. I had a little bit too big of an ego, coming out of high school. I chased a girl, went to Texas A&M, this huge school, was like, I'm an invite walk-on here, no big deal. I'm going to impress them with my glove, yada, 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 all that jazz. And then walk out on the field and reality hits. And way in over my head, physically, the way those guys went about it, instead of looking to my right and seeing a normal high school guy, I'm seeing a transfer from Arizona State who's a junior and,
studs.
Studs can do, and so I didn't make it at A&M, right? I tear my shoulder apart, lifting and trying to do too much. And from that point, I mean, even in college, I started, doing lessons here and there. I've always loved kids. Like that's been something that I've always had. I mean, even growing up, when I volunteered time to do things, it was with kids. I came home from college and coached my cousin's, 13-year-old baseball team, that type of stuff.
That's cool. Yeah.
And I just became a student of the game. Like it's something that I love. And, some people I'm sure that know me think I'm pretty boring. Like baseball is my life. Like I really don't do much else. I study the game. I look at how the best that have ever done it do it from a mechanical standpoint and try to fit that into the normal players. Everybody has these, this big leaguer does it like this, and this big leaguer. Dude, those are world-class athletes.
Yeah.
Like
it was an evolution. It doesn't just, you don't just jump there.
So, and that's why, getting into this YouTube stuff and getting into Instagram and having all these reaches, like now I get to talk to a guy that has, played at the big league level.
Well, not big league. But
but I mean,
yes,
you were playing professional baseball.
Yes.
And that's just the whole world out there that I know nothing about. The preparation that you guys go through and the actual, we talk to our, 11, 12, 13-year-olds. Oh, the grind.
Sure.
Nobody knows about the grind. You know about the grind.
Yeah. It's not always pretty.
Yeah. So, in getting those different things, it's not everybody that coaches this game played at a high level, like that. And you hear all the time, the great coaches don't always have to be pros or, They don't have to have this long lineage. People can now study the game that they love, and in some cases, give that information in a better way than a big league guy
Oh
that
yeah.
is, for whatever, for all it's, I know the game's not easy, but it came easy to them. If you're playing professional baseball, it's a good chance that when you were 12, 13, 15, 17, the game was pretty easy to you against your peers.
Sure.
And that doesn't always translate to being the best coach.
No.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
so yeah, getting in with you and, talking mental side and all the stuff that you do is, it's big for me, man. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, same here. What made you? Because when you went from, you said you kind of had a big head earlier in your career. Was there anything that changed going into coaching, or like you said, you always kind of had, you always kind of enjoyed being with kids? But was there anything that changed? Because, and I'll get to it, because I had to have a paradigm shift, a mental shift to get in before I was able to get into coaching, or before I wanted to get into coaching. Was there anything that changed, or was it just kind of a natural move into coaching for you?
Yeah, it was really natural for me. As soon as my playing days were done, I mean, the instant that my shoulder was shot and I knew, like, it was automatic. It was, okay, where can I find my first, coaching gig? Where can I volunteer?
Yeah.
I have to be around this game.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any false ideas of comebacks or anything like that. So as soon as I graduated from A&M, I have a sports management degree. I was working at an academy just as soon as I got out of college, and my high school coach called me and said, "Hey, I heard you're back. You're graduated. Would you like a job?"
Yeah.
And man, I started doing freshman baseball then and took off, did high school baseball for 9 years, almost 10, I guess. And just transferred over to more of the academy and development and recruiting. So it was it happened pretty easy.
A smooth, kind of just a natural evolution into it.
Good.
Obviously, same thing. My dad was a professional basketball player briefly. My dad's a big old boy. He's 6'6", like 200.
Lord.
Yeah, he's a big. So I'm 6'3", but I mean he makes me look tiny. But anyway, so he was a hard worker when it came to training and improving his craft as a basketball player. He always had a love for baseball, and he always told himself if he had a boy, he was going to be a baseball player. So I mean it was predetermined before I was even conceived that I was going to play baseball. And I think that is a common thing with a lot of either diehard baseball people, whether you're a coach or a player. There's a roots in this game, right from the very beginning. Like I had a ball in my hand. There's a picture somewhere floating around where I'm like, the ball looks like a basketball in my hands. Like that's how little I was holding, and it was actually a Major League Baseball, funny enough. But so anyways, I was into it early. I was always big, always stronger than my other my teammates. So I definitely had that strength and size over most of my over my peers. Power was always seemed, at least from what I can remember, I always had more power than other kids. I always had a stronger arm than most of the kids. But also early on, and this goes into, we won't go too much into this, but my personal life with my family, and there was a divorce going on like when I was like 8 or 9 years old. So a lot of confusion at that age. And so there was a lot of like, I think frustration, and again, it stems from confusion, develops into frustration, and ultimately led to anger. So I would show my anger very early. Like I was ejected when I was 9. That was the first game I was ejected from when I was 9. So as you can see, that was kind of like,
I laugh. I mean, it's not funny because
no,
I
I
know
know,
where it's
yeah,
coming from, but at the same time, it's like, dang, 9. At least
9.
I waited till I was 17.
Yeah, exactly. And it wouldn't be my last time. So,
Gotcha.
there was, I always excelled, and I threw hard. I was throwing like 75 in Little League, and, hitting balls like 300 feet, and, And so I always excelled, and that would carry on. I developed that work ethic from my father, who was, and I grew up watching Rocky, like on reruns. So that was kind of like, I always had that like,
mentality.
I always had that mentality. I always had that like I'm just gonna, that kind of the drama. Like I could see it just.
I had a tiger, man.
I had a tiger, baby. So that always I was always very well fueled when it came to work ethic and working on the physical parts of the game. I get into high school, and it continued. I mean, I'd hit my points where I'd plateau, or like where maybe it seemed like I would kind of level out with my power and my arm, but then my work ethic would would fuel push past, and start to separate myself from other people. I always played year round, which I'm sure you did too. I mean, it was just nonstop baseball. Get into high school again, just more and more success, but the temper, the anger that would surface when things didn't go as anticipated. And then this is where we'll get into the mental game. Why I'm big on the mental game is because that was my weakest point. And I had the attitude or the mindset that didn't even believe that I needed to work on that. Or if somebody told me, well, you have an attitude, you can't throw helmets, you can't slam bats, I would just say, well, that's just how I am. I'm passionate. I'm Italian. I wear my heart on my sleeve, kind of thing. It's like, and so I kind of use that. That was always like an excuse for how I acted. You know what I mean? So I was always bailing myself out. And so ultimately I ended up getting drafted out of high school. Actually, I got drafted as a pitcher out of high school. It was always a big struggle because scouts wanted me to pitch and I always wanted to hit. I had won league MVP my junior year as a hitter, so I had plenty of success as a hitter. But they saw me as a pitcher. So there was always this big like back and forth between hitter pitcher, and I always had a love for hitting. I felt that my power as a hitter was far beyond what I could do as a pitcher. Like I was topping out at like 90, 91, my junior and senior year in high school. Anyways, get drafted low rounds by Houston, actually. I was drafted by the Astros. Really? Yeah, I was drafted by the Astros, ultimately twice. I was eventually drafted by Houston my freshman year at junior college, but I was drafted 50th round. I led our league in home runs and RBIs as a freshman, and was drafted 50th. And there were guys in our league getting drafted top 10 rounds. So I was but that was, again, one of those things where it's just like, I would just get upset about it. And I'd kind of talk down about other players. They can do that. They can't do what I can do, kind of thing. So it's more like the attitude. So my sophomore year, I actually signed with Texas Tech. I was going to go get a scholarship there. I go in, I have an injury my sophomore year. And that was when, this is where I excelled. When I was set back, and in this case, this was like the first season-ending injury I'd ever had, I was 6'3", 235, which is about what I am now. I was a little overweight, a little heavy, strong as hell, but I needed to lose weight. And I was like, I have a broken foot. I can't be out of shape. And this is kind of goes into like the situation we're in now, is like making the best of the time that you do have to do whatever you can with what you got. So I hit it hard. I got into nutrition. I got into doing working out, doing whatever I could. So I'd work just upper body until my feet got better. I could put it on a bike, and I started riding a bike. I lost 25 pounds and came back stronger, throwing 94. So I increased 5 miles an hour on my fastball and half a second off my 60 time, all through an injury. And that's what kills me today, is that I see so many kids getting hurt, maybe spraining a wrist or something, or breaking a wrist, or anything, right? And then they come back and they're not in better shape. It's like, dude, what are you doing? If you want to, you wasted time. You use it as an excuse to sit on the couch, and that's flat out the truth. Anyway, so I had a bust out year. I hit like 390. I hit like 11 home runs. I led the league in like I set a record for intentional walks because like people just didn't want to pitch to me. Especially we're using the bats. What kind of bats were we using? The Beezer bats, BSR, BESR, whatever.
Yeah, BESR.
So we were. I mean, I was just annihilating baseballs. So anyways, then I get drafted by Colorado in the 15th round, and then went on to play 3 years with them. But again, the underlying theme with me was my attitude, and that was my Achilles tendon. So I actually was an all-star my second year in the minors. I don't know how. I mean, because when I think back, I was so hard. I mean, I put up decent numbers. So I mean, that's why I became an all-star. But the explosiveness that I would have not as a hitter, I had that, but just with anger when I would struggle, like how I maintained myself during the season or how I didn't maintain myself, going out and partying, just not taking care of my body. I broke down through the season mentally and physically. I was healthy, but like I was able to be on the field, but.
And on that note, real quick,
Yeah.
that goes back to like you and guys that are big and strong and talented and whatnot that, win all these awards and do stuff. That's where I was talking about the game being easier. And I tried to take what you just said. You were doing it at a professional level or a high college level to going out and the partying and not taking care of your body the right way. And that's for a really, really high level guy. And trying to explain, hey, you got to do this to a mediocre, middle of the road high school guy. Like, hey, bro, you're not this really high level guy that can get away with this. Like, I understand that senior All-American can go and party till 4 a.m. and then show up and still play high school baseball and do really well, but you can't. And, taking that in and from an early age, getting kids to understand now the world that they live in from a sports perspective. It's not just baseball. Yeah. It could be basketball, it can be soccer, it can be whatever. At 12, 13, 14 years old, you've got kids that are getting recruited and looked at and everything else. And those are the people you're competing against. And you're living in a bubble of your high school. And
it's a very small bubble.
I'm trying to expand this bubble for you to understand this is a huge world out there. And if you're not starting to take care of your body, to take care of your grades, to take care of your mental health, to, develop these things, that's just like not getting in the cage and working or getting in the bullpen and working. It's the exact same thing.
Exactly the same thing.